Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, what's up? It's your boy Uncle Carlton, a co-host of the Two Black Kings podcast. Xavier, what's up with you, bro?
What's good? What's good? What's good, Kings and Queens? My name is Xavier Greer. I'm the other co-host of the Two Black Kings podcast. Thank you for joining this week.
The Two Black Kings podcast seeks to inspire a generation to equip themselves with tools to navigate life. We will be discussing topics such as financial literacy, pop culture, and relationships from the perspective of two Black kings.
Here on Two Black Kings podcast, we want to bring you different perspectives from some of the highest achievers in their field. While the guests we have on our show do not reflect the ideas or the co-hosts nor the companies we work for, we believe in providing you with the knowledge and tools to take your life to the next level.
Before you do anything, like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're trying to send this out to at least 5 friends so we can get famous. And follow us on Instagram at Two Black Kings.
All right, let's get it with this week's episode.
Period. Okay, XG, how you been since 2021?
Bro, it's been a minute. It's been a long minute.
So you want to discuss why we stopped and kind of like what made us pick this back up?
Yeah, for sure. Oh, you want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
At least on my part, I think I needed more time to just live life. I feel like we were just such a small little bubble when we were going through quarantine that it was just like, I feel like we lived the same day every single day. And
bro.
So sometimes you just need inspiration. It's kind of like how Rihanna doesn't make music. Like, she makes music in spurts now. She don't just give you a whole bunch of albums. She give you like a little taste. So we had to give them a little taste with the first few seasons. But I'm glad we back, bro. I'm glad we back.
Yeah, bro. I'm glad we back too. And to piggyback off that statement, like, I feel like our perspective was so narrow, like you said, because of not only our experience at time with life, just being in college and being in a bubble our entire lives at NUS and then just at college, but the quarantine, there wasn't much going on, and really all we were doing, not we, but what I saw online was people just bickering back and forth about that.
For sure.
And nobody was actually experiencing life. We were just fighting online, and that's not really something that we're about. So
exactly.
The 2-year break was needed because I think we got houses now, we got jobs, we got
a lot of things changed in like a year and a half.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm thinking this is about to go crazy. I don't know about you, but
yeah, for sure,
it's go crazy.
I got a lot of high hopes for this season. I feel like we back and we better. We have, like you said, a better perspective on just like who we are. Because when I tell you, like 2021, like if 2020 broke me, 2021 molded me, and 2022 was just a continuation of that. And so 2022, you feel me? That is perfect, bro. That is perfect. Oh, God. With 2023, our plan is to take over, bro. I think it's to dominate. I've been watching like the Deion Sanders documentary on Amazon Prime.
Oh, for sure.
And like, bro, consistently dominate. I think that's the mantra of this season.
I think 2023 is an inflection point for a lot of people, especially us. I mean, I like how before 2023 even started, we had a goal of the entire year made in December. And so we kind of have a guideline guiding us through what's about to happen. And I don't think a lot of people have that. So that's really going to be our first pitch of advice. It's just like create some type of roadmap so you're not just aimlessly following the wind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, just to bring back some segments that we had from the previous season. So King of the Week. So our King of the Week is Damar Hamlin. If you're not well versed or just been living under a rock, but Damar Hamlin had a tragic cardiac arrest on the field. He's a defensive back for the Buffalo Bills. For the Buffalo Bills, and so he's finally recovering from that. So big shouts to
big shouts to Damar Hamlin, man.
Yeah, with the medical.
Did you see him get hit? Like, did you see?
I saw it. But the crazy thing about the hit was it didn't look like anything outside of the ordinary. Like T.
Oh, for
Higgins
real?
trucked him, and I was just like, oh dang. And he got up and he started shaking, and he just fell down. I was like, oh dang.
Honestly, hold on. I think I might.
Rushed to the hospital tonight after he collapsed during the NFL's Monday Night Football game.
Bills safety Damar Hamlin collapsed on the field after he suffered a cardiac arrest while playing against the Cincinnati Bengals. Hamlin had just made an open field tackle on Bengals wide receiver T. Higgins.
Damn! He was in the heart.
And
You don't even look, and then he gets up.
An ambulance was brought onto the
And then
field.
he just.
Hamlin is being treated
I thought this man was fine.
in Cincinnati, and at last check,
And he just falls.
condition.
I was like,
oh my God, that's
announced that
horrible.
the game has been postponed in a statement saying in part, quote, "Our thoughts are with Damar and the Buffalo Bills. We will provide more information as it becomes."
That's just what's going on.
Yeah, super tragic, but I'm glad he's in high spirits today. And so, it's just good to have him around. And then, so the book of the week would be You Owe You. This is actually the last book. I try to do a book a month, just every year, just kind of as a.
What is this one about? I haven't read this one.
So it's called You Owe You by Eric Thomas. It's actually relatively new, one of the New York Times bestseller. But when I tell you, like, I've been with Eric Thomas since like my wrestling days in high school. So it's been super long. He's like super motivational. And I think he just gives like a good base foundation. And then the podcast is a good supplement to his life and in the book. So yeah, definitely should go and get that.
Okay. So I didn't even ask you, Zare, how long do you want to make these podcasts? About an hour, 45 minutes? What?
Yeah, I was gonna about a little bit less. Yeah, hour 45 minutes. Or 45 minutes to an hour.
Oh, so you want to hop into this topic?
Yeah, yes sir.
Okay. We already talked about what you doing in 2021. What was the hard? Okay, so let's just do a life update right now since we're here. Let's just do a life update. So we graduated from our master's programs. I think what was that? 2020. I graduated 2021. You was in 2020.
Yeah, 2020.
So we graduated from our master's programs and found jobs shortly after that. I moved to San Antonio to work as a commercial real estate broker for CBRE, leasing up office buildings, industrial buildings, and retail boxes, pretty much. And so I was doing that for about a year. It's a commission-based job. It's very variable when you get paid. And so it didn't really utilize my finance background like I wanted to, since I put in all that work in college. So Texas Capital Bank actually offered me a job in Austin as a real estate analyst for their bank. And so that's currently what I'm doing right now. Just bought a house out here in Pflugerville.
What a hand clap. We do need a hand clap.
We do need a hand clap.
Need the hand clap, John, for that joint.
I'm just gonna do this. So we just bought a house. I mean, it's a smooth little joint out here in Pflugerville.
All right.
But so did that, and now I'm just kind of working my plan, trying to do some more, make some money.
And as for me, I was studying for the CPA, probably 2020, all through 2020, slight 2021. But after just like reevaluating like the year and kind of my career goals, I didn't see the purpose of it. And so, the things that I actually want to do, you like this fuck. The thing
you already did. He's skirting.
But yeah, so I just stopped. And then part of the reasons why I was studying while I was studying for the CPA, I was also working for UPS, just like as a side gig. But now I'm with my big boy job, doing Big Four accounting, and so I'm enjoying it. Like my position, I'm staff one. Hopefully get promoted to senior pretty soon.
Hell yeah!
And yeah, just like Rashad, or really, I like to boast that I got the crib first.
He sure did get that motherfucker first. He sure did.
Yeah, bro. It was that was a lot. I stayed at my parents' house for about 2 years, saved up enough to get that down payment on the house. And bro, when I tell you that was hard. That shit was hard, bro. I'm not even gonna lie to you.
So how was the process of buying a house? Was it harder than you thought, easier than you thought, and has it been a good investment so far?
So I'm gonna answer the last question first. Of course, it's a great investment. Walked in with $13K in equity, like off rip. So that's good. Building equity within my house. But when I tell you that was one of the hardest things, only because it's very hard to do something, kind of like being a trailblazer with whatever that you do.
Right.
It's kind of hard being the first, and so when you don't have people to ask questions about it, or what about this, so knowing that you have the down payment on the house, which is usually, if you're not doing FHA is usually like 2.5% of the purchase price. If you do a conventional, which what I did, is 5%. But you also have to factor, there's a couple expenses that you have to factor in when you're thinking about, I want to buy a house. One is the 5% of the purchase price. Then factor in another 2.5 to 5% for the closing costs. Man, the closing costs will get you. And then on top of that, having money for a security system, blinds, if you have to like put up blinds in your house.
It's just all the ancillary stuff that adds up. Like I gotta put new breakers in my house. Like, dang. Don't let your HVAC system be fucked up. That's another crazy. But to piggyback off what you just said, I'm a realtor here in the Austin area. I'm seeing this a lot. But I don't know how it really is in Dallas. But there's a lot of new builds going on in some of the cities outside of downtown Austin. And these builders are actually paying for closing costs and paying it part of your down payment because the market is so buyer's market right now.
Right, in Austin. You should specify that. Yeah, in Austin is a huge building, it's upcoming.
Austin, or it's really Houston first, and then Austin, then Dallas, then San Antonio in terms of Texas. But Texas is pretty much ahead of every other state other than Florida.
So in real estate, okay.
Yeah, in real estate. So I only say that to say that, if you are trying to buy a house, I think it's a great investment, but there are other avenues other than putting, $13K down plus closing costs, because I personally financed through Cadence Bank. And since I qualified for the down payment assistance program where I had to pay 0% down. I just paid closing costs.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, so I put 0% down. Obviously, that makes your payment a little higher since I didn't take off on the loan. But, it is what it is. I personally had enough money for a down payment, but I wanted to use my money doing something else. So since I qualified for this program and I plan on holding this property long term and turning this into a rental property as well, I'm just going to build equity over time. And when I get the money, I'll just pay off the loan 10 years down the line, 8 years down the line, call it a day. That was my personal choice.
Or have somebody else pay that joint off.
Yeah. So if you're trying to buy a house, it's really not, it's a hard process, but it's kind of like tying your shoes, and there's multiple routes you can go to be successful. There isn't just one route. So
yeah, and it's good to do your research on the front end, because like you heard, we have two different ways of how we bought a house, but it's all based on your financial situation currently, and then two, what you plan on doing ahead. So I really like how you talked about how you want to put more money towards what you want to get inside the house. That's why you didn't get the down payment. So yeah, bro, definitely a beneficial thing. And then another thing that I want to do, just an update since the whole 2021, is I'm slowly getting into tax preparation, and so with that it comes learning tax laws, the best way to deduct things, how to write certain things off, and so I had a buddy come visit me. That was a couple of months ago, but he had an argument with his friend about renting versus buying. So Rashad, which would you prefer and why?
Yeah, so I get asked this question often, and it's different for everybody that I talk to, and this is why it's really dependent on your situation. So for me, I can only speak for myself. But when I was purchasing a home, I was actually going to rent an apartment first because I was like, look, I have to move pretty fast because of the job change. I really want to get to know the market before I just go buy a house in a random area. That was my thought process of it. But I ended up realizing that the Austin market wasn't like super complicated. Like I could just do a couple of research on CoStar, so that's why my mind changed. But renting, there are certain benefits to renting versus buying, and there are certain benefits to buying versus renting.
Right.
For me, I think buying is more, if you have the money in the financial situation, I think buying is more beneficial if you plan to stay in a place more than 5 years. There's just a lot of tax benefits. Obviously, you have your own house that you could just call your own. And there's a lot of intangibles that go with that as well. Like you just feel more confident. I don't know if you've sometimes when I'm dealing with just BS from a girl or from anybody, I be like, I got my own house. Like,
bro, I'm about to go back to the house, bro. Yeah, I don't need to deal with this.
Exactly. So that's pretty much kind of my high level spill. We'll go more into detail because I want you to kind of like inform them of the tax benefits.
So basically so obviously there's no tax benefits in doing renting. Like you're essentially paying somebody else to live in a certain place. I will say one of the benefits that I like about renting is no responsibilities. Like if you're not the one to, I need a plumber, I need an electrician to come out and like check my sockets. If you're not trying to do any of that hard labor, then renting is a great job. And like Rashad said, if you don't see yourself there for more than 5 years, like my parents live here in Dallas, like my brother and family live here in Dallas. So I don't mind staying here, I know this will be eventually a home. But when it comes to tax benefits for a house, it's many things. I think the first thing off the top is deducting the interest payments that you have. So when you pay your mortgage every month, so it's obviously a mortgage. Yeah, when you're renting, you're paying rent. When you're
start from the basic. So start from taxable income. And
bro, they not gonna get. I'm trying to talk to the average person. If we're talking about the whole tax
this is what I meant. Like if you have $100,000, right, and you have $6,000 of interest payments over the year for your house.
Yes.
Then instead of paying taxes on that $100,000, you're paying it on the $94,000. That's what I was saying. That's all I wanted you to say. You know what I mean? Like that you're deducting taxable income because it's.
You're saying if you earn $100,000 a year.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Let me get that quick explanation. So basically, when you're going for this tax season that's coming up in April, basically what your goal in tax season is to make your taxable income as low as possible, and then on top of that, you want to maximize your tax refund. So one of the ways to do that is through tax payments or interest payments. So when you're paying a mortgage, part of that money that you pay every month is going towards the principal, and part of it is going towards the interest on the loan that you just got. Okay, so all those interest payments, that's why we tell you, like when it comes to tax preparation, keep your receipts. All those interest payments will go, let's just say you make $100,000 a year and you have a total of $10,000 in interest payments. What will happen is, instead of being taxed, and you have to look at the tax brackets to determine like if this is beneficial to you in the long run.
Right.
If you have $100,000, and let's just say the next tax bracket below that is that $90K. Okay, well, you have $10,000 in interest that you can deduct from your taxable income that will bring it down to that $90K. So now you're getting taxed at a lower tax bracket while keeping most of your money. That's the whole tax implication for buying a house.
And see, this is high level game right now. Once we get in the weeds, like this is when the podcast starts to get beneficial because this stuff isn't obvious information.
Yeah.
Like it's just really not. And so that's kind of one thing that's good about buying a house. For me, okay, let's talk about renting because there are plenty of advantages to renting right now.
Right.
So for me, like renting keeps you mobile. You can pretty much do whatever you want to do.
Right.
you only got to sign a year lease. I signed an 8-month lease in San Antonio, so I was really mobile. And so it doesn't tie you down to one place. You have no responsibilities, like Xavier said. But I think another one is I don't want to say it's more convenient, but it kind of is more convenient because apartment buildings tend to be more in the mix. And you can't just put a house like on top of a mall. Like at the Domain here in Austin, there are a whole bunch of apartments lining the mall. And same thing at Legacy in Dallas or the Rim in San Antonio.
Right.
Like those apartments are right in the mix where you don't even need to drive your car. You just go downstairs and you're already with everybody. So I think that's a huge advantage because you usually in a nicer, safer, quote unquote area. But that person for me, I like to be out the way. So
man,
that was never,
way, bro.
Yeah, that was never like something that I would consider because I was just like, I don't have to be in the mix.
Yeah, and I think that was very helpful for me, just having like my parents being that bug in my ear. They're like, yeah, why don't you think about owning your house? Like you're gonna be here long term. You might as well like you start gaining equity. That's another thing. So you paying down your loan that you received every month is building equity within that house, and what that can do. So these, not to get too technical, but there's certain gains that you can use that can't be taxed. So when your real estate appreciates in value, that different. So let's just say you bought the house for $200,000. Okay, 2 years later it appreciates to $400,000. That $200,000 is now the equity that you own in that house. Now, in order to skip the taxes or skip being taxed on that, you have to take that $200,000 that you profited off this house that it appreciated and put it towards the payment on your next house. And that's what's known as like capital gains. So people try to avoid capital gains by taking their profit and buying new property.
Right. That's called 1031.
Yes, 1031.
So we'll talk about 1031 here in a second. But Xavier, actually, we could talk about 1031 right now. So no. Actually, let me ask this question because it ties into it. So when I work at the bank, obviously, and what I do is I give out loans between $1 and $100 million, mostly on apartment buildings, but we do some, retail spots, we do some industrial spots, whatever the case may be. But usually apartment buildings are the ones that are doing the best in the market since 2020. Yeah. So that's what we've been focused on in order for the bank to make money. Anyways, I say all this to say, like, when people are investing in apartment buildings, they have to sometimes bring 50% equity, 60% equity to the deal. And those are obviously financed by high net worth individuals or other funds. And so when we look at these high net worth individuals, what I see on their balance sheet, because I have to check all this stuff out when I'm underwriting it, what I see on their balance sheet is they have a lot of illiquid assets being real estate.
What does liquid mean?
So liquid, that's a great question. Liquid means that it's easily spendable. So cash, marketable securities, those are liquid assets because you can easily convert that into value. An illiquid asset is something that has a barrier to that liquid state, whether it be, the real estate is the classic example because you can't just turn a house into money. You have to sell the house first. And it might, in this market, it might take you a month or two. But if you're talking about a very niche office building, that might take, 6 or 7, 8 months. So that's what we mean by illiquid, because if you file bankruptcy, you go into bankruptcy, it's going to take the bank some time to foreclose on those loans and sell those houses. So what I see on a lot of high net worth individuals' balance sheets is illiquid assets, that being real estate. And I wanted to ask you, so when we buy this house, does that add to our balance sheet? So does our net worth go up by the fair market value of this house, or is that something that I'm just kind of creating in my head?
Okay, so how I view it is, so it will show up as debt. So we both took out a loan, so it would automatically, so technically we would be in the negative.
Well, let me ask you this. So how you have the accounting equation where it's like assets equals liabilities plus equity.
Plus, yeah.
So would it come up as an asset on this and debt? Like, would you have like a house worth blah blah blah, and then a debt of blah blah blah?
Yes. Okay. And then you would start as that asset, as it appreciates in value, your assets would grow.
Right.
And so that would be you paying on your debt will obviously lower your total debt. So okay. So it's very essential to keep, and that's why I like building equity so much, because that equity can be turned, that becomes the liquid part of your asset. That's where you can change the equity and put it towards building a fence, building upgrades. And I think that's one of the most important things. If I could tell like a most important tidbit of buying a house, is you want to reinvest all your profits. And really not even just buying a house, just owning a business. You always want to reinvest your profits. So it's so, I know it can be very tempting to take this, let's just say you got 50K in equity in your house, take that 50K and buy you a new car. And then now you have this depreciating asset that you no longer need, that automatically depreciates once you get off the car lot, if it's not something fancy. So definitely want to reinvest. And that's why that when we mentioned the 1031 gain, that's why it's so important that they are encouraging you to reinvest it rather than just take it out, because you will be taxed if you take out that equity and just use it to. So yeah, just be aware.
And so to give you a quick summary of what 1031 gains are, and I know this firsthand because I'm literally dealing with this as we speak. Really, we deal with it all the time. But I can't disclose who the company is. But when you sell off a real estate asset for whatever, you have I think it's a 9-month period. You have a certain period of time where that money is not taxed if you buy another real estate asset. So what my company that I'm working with right now is doing is they sold off some of their assets and they want to buy new assets in order to build new retail spots.
Right.
And so they have to do it before January 17th. That's why we're working so hard on this deal right now. And so the non-tax is significant because taxing on real estate gains is pretty high.
Right.
And so if you're not taxed, what you could essentially do is you could sell your property at an appreciated value. Let's say it went from 250K to 350K. And now you can purchase a building, another one, for 350K, and you could let that appreciate, and you could just keep stair-stepping like that with 1031 money. And so that's why that's important. But that's more high-level game that will get you, at some other time. Yeah. But we have to kind of build up the knowledge first before we just start talking about real estate strategies.
Right. And I think eventually, like, I would like to bring more people in and talk about it, because obviously we learned it, or Rashad learned it obviously in school, getting his master's, but I think I learned it more so on the consumer side since I'm not in real estate. And it just opened my eyes to a lot of things, man. Like, be ready. Like,
these folks have a huge head start on us, and these folks, I'm not talking about a particular race of people, but as Black men, we this wasn't important to us when we were younger.
Right. But nor was it available to us.
Nor was it available because our parents, they're doing well for themselves now, but at the time they weren't thinking in this type of mindset. They were thinking in another mindset.
Right.
So some of my counterparts who were in the real estate program or who did work with me, they've been doing this since they were very young. They know about this type of stuff.
They know the business, bro.
Right. And so this is what I'm saying. We need to educate everyone on this stuff because, like I said, it's like tying your shoes. It sounds super complicated when we talk about it, but it's really not that complicated once you're going through it. You've done it hundreds of times. It is what it is. But Xavier, I wanted to ask you another question about the rent versus buy.
Okay.
What are some situations, and I don't know if you thought about this, so take your time, but what are some situations where you would rent over buy? And what are some other situations that you would buy over?
Bro, if I was a money-making bachelor in San Francisco, and I just had...
I know you thought about this too.
And I just had like plenty of time, and like a lot of my friends were all over the US, and I knew I like could have the money to just visit and fly like that. Yeah, I definitely rent. Like if you are single, ready to mingle, you're not tied down by anything, your family is okay with you traveling and stuff, and then we're young. Yes, bro. Yes. Oh my god. Yes, bro. You already know what's going down, bro.
Oh my god.
So if you single and you ain't tied down by anything, especially if you're in your early 20s, like.
But we're single in our early 20s, not tied down on anything, and we bought houses. So
but and see, yeah, that's the point I was about to get to, is that my family lives here, so like I know I will always be here no matter what. Like Christmas, I know for sure I got to come back for Thanksgiving. There's a couple things like I would have to come back for, but I can easily and then this is where another high level like tidbit is. I can eventually rent this whole house out and then go do the bachelor thing while building the equity within a house, having somebody else pay the mortgage. I'm out either buying a new place or renting somewhere else, because I eventually I do want to live abroad for a minute.
Bro, I would love to live abroad, somewhere like Barcelona or something like that. Dude. Would go absolutely. I honestly might have to do that.
Yeah, so it's either like I was thinking Barcelona, I was thinking Costa Rica. I was thinking, of course, London, because that would just be an easy transition.
I wouldn't mind going to London.
Yeah, I love London. So I do have goals, but yeah, renting. If I was a person that hated hard labor when it comes to cutting the yard, edging, housework, like if I hated that stuff, I'll get an apartment. I ain't had to worry about no yard. I ain't got to cut no hedges, like clean no gutters. Yeah, security. I ain't really got to be on alert or anything. I ain't got to set up cameras like when I'm renting. So yeah, there's plenty of reasons why. Like if you want to do things, but that's why it's so important to know that what you want out of life and what you want out of your situation. If you just lollygagging, and you just renting just because like you got all this money and you just want a lavish lifestyle, it's just like, nah, that's
dead. Like you're not maximizing your value. You're just whatever.
Yeah.
Which is fine for a couple years. Like there's nothing wrong with that, because that's what I was doing last year. But there is a vision that we're trying to portray to y'all that is a better outcome. Is really what we're trying to get.
And sometimes you can't have. We are very much a instant gratification culture, whereas we feel like we need everything now. And so, so I don't know if y'all caught it, but I lived with my parents for 2 years before. So it is okay if you're 20 to 25, even if you're 20 to 28, like to be living with your parents and saving that money, like stacking it to the side, and then, but also knowing that you have a plan. Don't be just living off your parents. One, not paying them any money, and then two, not helping around the house, and then just buying all these extravagant trips and buying all these nice shoes, and
they love to buy the trips.
Yeah. Always gotta buy. They buy chains and shit. Like
you be like, bro.
So, but yeah. What up?
This man is funny. Like y'all see this shit stream. Like okay, so I would say like there are a lot of deterrents for buying a house, and I think this segues into like what was the hardest part of buying a house.
Yeah.
So like I said, I'm a realtor. So when I was buying a house, I hired another one from Keller Williams just because I didn't know the Austin market and I wanted a little guidance. But because I had my broker's background, I kind of already knew what to do. And so he didn't really do much work. It was more me. Like I found the house I'm living in now. He did the contracts and everything. So he did that. But, in terms of negotiations and stuff like that, like it was pretty much, yeah, exactly. And so I say all that to say the hardest part for me in the process was dealing with the bank. And not because the bank was difficult, but because they wanted so much information. Like it was a ridiculous amount of information. I feel like the only thing they don't know about me at this point is my blood type. That's it. because they checked my credit like 6 times just to see if I bought. Okay, so this is gonna be some other high level game, but I'm about to give you. But I'll get to that. They checked my credit like 6 times. I had to send them my bank statements like 4 different times.
Consistently.
Obviously, was involved in the closing, how much I had to pay for the closing. They had my balance sheet. They know how much money I make, how much money I'm gonna make, how much money I made 2 years ago, last year. Like, they know all that.
Yeah, they want the last 2 years of W-2s, and then your bank account statements up until the day of closing. That's another like thing. Never buy a car or use any credit cards while you're buying a house, because they want to make sure that your credit is up to par. I've heard stories about how people, will go through the whole home buying process, and then they're like, "Ooh, I gotta buy a washer and dryer," and they buy it on a credit card. That dings their credit, and then so the lender is now no longer, like they no longer is giving you the loan. So, but yeah,
because this is what happens, right? They check your credit, and they check obviously the credit cards that come up on your credit report. Then they call the credit card companies with you on the phone to verify your balances, and this is 2 days before closing. They also do it the day before closing. They don't call, but they go and verify. And so what we're advised to do as realtors is to tell our clients, do not purchase anything before you buy the house. Purchase everything afterwards, because it was literally, okay, so I had to get my car fixed, right? And it was like $4,000 because something in the engine had fucked up or whatever. And then they charged me over to labor. So I put it on a credit card, right? And then I paid it off the next month. But it still showed up on my credit report. And so I had to prove to the bank that I paid off that $4,000 expense, because that $4,000 wasn't going to ruin my debt to income ratio, but the numbers were getting closer and closer. And since I had never bought a house before and never financed a car, the bank wanted to be a little bit more sure, and I was going 0% down, so that's inherently more risky.
Right.
And so my process might have been more than the average individual buying a house, but that is one of the things that would deter me from buying a house if I was a new home buyer, is how lengthy and how much information you're going to need for the process. The only remedy for this is to get a good real estate agent who has bought a house and is well adept to the first time home buyers process. Because if I wasn't a sophisticated individual, I would have had a lot of hiccups. But because my dad is a lawyer who does real estate, and because I'm in finance, and because I work at the bank, so I kind of already knew what was about to happen, like I had a heads up. But if I was, and I don't want to throw anybody on the bus, but if I was like fucking, I don't know, Anthony or some Dion, their careers aren't in finance and are not in real estate. So they'd have been like, bro, what is an IABS? What is this document I have to sign? I got to send them all my W-2. Like, they would have been like, damn. And so just gathering all those documents is hard. So that's really
and one of the points I wanted to bring up that you said is how important like a network is. So I got my sweatshirt on, the best fraternity. We had a happy J5. But I bring that up to say both my lender and my realtor were both noobs. And it was because of the relationship that I had with them and the relationship that they had just in the Dallas area. So I'm going to give him a shout out. Aubrey Pearson, that man, dynamic, bro. He kills it in Dallas, Austin, and Houston. And then Leonis Richardson, he does my lending. And when I tell you, he got probably like 2 days before I was actually supposed to close, and I was like trying to rack my brain how I was going to get some like extra money. He qualified me for a first-time home buyers program that brought the number down like $5,000. So I ended up staying, like keeping money in my pocket and then building equity within the house.
And that is so important.
That's so important, bro. It's already expensive in general. So, but yeah, always updating or having like a close-knit community that you feel comfortable with, because it's a home. So it's one of the most important investments that you'll have, one of the most important assets. So don't take it lightly. That's all I have to say.
Don't take it like it. Yeah, exactly. And so, one thing I wanted to touch on before we go into the rest of the topics is topic of inflation and how that's affecting the market. I don't think a lot of people kind of realize what inflation is. So let me start at the very basic. So inflation is just when money is getting devalued because there's too much being printed, pretty much.
Right.
And so what that basically means numerically, if you're a better, analytical thinker, is if I have $100,000 at the end of the year, or at the beginning of the year, January 1st, I have $100,000. I put it in a bank account, like a savings account, earning 0.01% interest per year. If I put it in there and inflation's at 3%, effectively December 31st of that same year, your money's worth $97,000. That's just what inflation is. And so the reason why investing is actually essential is because if you're not making over 3%, which was inflation, then you're actually losing money. And so your goal when you're investing is to beat inflation and make a return. But if you can beat inflation, then you're breaking even pretty much. And so that's kind of like the basis of why you need to invest in what inflation is. And how that affects the housing market is this. When inflation rises like it is right now, I think SOFR, which is what we use at the bank as an inflation index, is like 4.3%. We usually have a 3% spread. So that makes interest rates effectively 7% across like the market of banks.
And so what are interest rates? I know that's a big question that a lot of people ask me. Like, what is it?
Okay, so yeah. So when you loan money to someone, you're not just giving them free money. That's the basis. Like, you're not just getting $350,000 of free money. You're going to pay a fee for getting the money up front from the bank. And that fee is interest. And so when you say there's a 7% interest rate and you have a $100,000 loan, effectively what that means is you're paying $7,000 of interest per year to use that $100,000 to buy that house. That's what interest means. Interest is usually calculated on a monthly basis when it comes to principal and interest. And they just throw it into an APR, which is the annual percentage rate, which isn't technically accurate, but is accurate for most people, if that makes any sense. So the way interest and inflation in this high, quote unquote, inflationary market, even though inflation is high for interest, but we'll talk about inflation first. The reason why inflation matters and is because it increases interest rates. That's really the connection here. And so to talk about interest rates, the reason why that affects the market is when interest rates go up, effectively payments on your house go up. So if I have a $300,000 house and interest is 2%, my mortgage would be like $2,100. But if I have that same $300,000 house and interest rates are 7%, then my mortgage would be like $2,900, which is an increase of $800 a month.
Yeah.
And so it's significant because, and I'm about to make the connection here, y'all gonna be like, oh shit. When interest rates go up, housing affordability goes down. So that means the value of houses are going down because people can't make those payments.
Right.
I'll say this one more time, just in case nobody got it. If I have a $300,000 house, and interest rates are 2%, the numbers aren't accurate here, but just in my head, that mortgage payment would be about $2,100. If I have that same $300,000 house and interest is 7%, then my mortgage would be about $2,900, a difference of $800. But it's the same price, but not as many people can afford it in the high interest rates markets versus in the low interest rates markets, which slow down sales because people can't afford it and therefore bring down the housing values. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so that's the reason why interest rates are so important in this market, is because they affect the affordability of housing.
Yeah.
And the same thing is on a grander scale in commercial real estate when it comes to apartment buildings. It's just the same thing on a bigger scale, pretty much.
Yeah, and so that is essential. It's funny because I was watching the Bernie Madoff scandal. So any of you that don't know Bernie Madoff, one of the number one biggest Ponzi schemes in America. Basically, what a Ponzi scheme is I take let's just say Rashad, I tell Rashad, hey, give me $100, I can turn to 1,000. And I take his $100 and I never turn it to 1,000. But now, you know, my friend Ricky, he said he needs $100. Well, I just took the money I took from Rashad, I now give it to Ricky because it's just like, oh, I got you. And so he took somewhere near $65 billion is what this Ponzi scheme made. That is unfathomable in my head. So that didn't mean he stole $65 billion, but he stole $19 billion and then lied to all these people and said, hey, we're going to give you a 15% interest rate. So your money's going to grow at 15% each year. And so lied to people over in Europe, lied to people like just all across the world. And really, he really finessed the whole financial system.
Like,
and that's why
that
the
shit,
whole crash came.
That's a buzzer right there. That's fuck.
People lost their house, like everything. You can't afford anything after that. Like,
yeah, you can't do shit at all.
But yeah. So before we close out though, so we gave the update on houses and what we've been doing. But how's the dating scene been? I know you've been going crazy since.
Oh, so I've been going crazy now. God, you see how you look on the bus here on the street?
Bro said, yeah.
God, it makes I'm going crazy.
Bruh. Man.
Sin City was an idiot.
You are ugly.
Okay, so the dating market in 2021, 2022, and 2023. I haven't been in a relationship in 3 years. On purpose. Because I could get in one. But what I'm struggling with finding is a woman that is dependable. Because people are playing too many games. And what I've noticed over the past 3 years is that it's getting lopsided to where like we thought it was 80% of women like 20% of men, but it's more like 90% of women like 10% of men. That's kind of how it's feeling. Because like I see a lot of guys get zero play.
Man.
And then I see people like me, Xavier, I'm not gonna name Dion, and you know some others who are like just choosing and just not liking the choices that we have. Like, but these girls really aren't choosing. They're only choosing a certain small subset of people.
And that's my biggest thing that I've learned over the past 2 years is that like, you know, you talk to so many girls, but at the same time, there's a group of people that when I talk to them, everybody's lonely. Everybody's not talking to anybody. No. But somebody's getting something, bro. Like, I just need to find where the divide is.
There is a huge divide. Because you're absolutely right, Xavier. Everybody's so obsessed with doing their own thing, being alone, and they're so quote unquote happy. But when they go home, they tell me, people tell me all the time, like, I don't know why I'm still alone at the house. And I'd be like, because you say you don't need a man. Like, what do you mean? Yeah. And so I don't know what the answer is per se, but I know what the answer is for men.
What's the answer?
Let me just break this whole thing down. Let me just break it whole down. So Xavier, you already know this information, but I'm gonna break it down for the stream. So I've read a couple books over the past couple of years. One being The Way of Superior Man, another being, you know, stuff just on YouTube.
Men Are From Mars. Yeah,
Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And what I can tell you is this.
Bruh.
Men like beautiful women,
of course,
and women like men that can provide. That's the bottom line. That's literally the bottom line. And so I say that to say hypergamy is undefeated and pretty women are undefeated. This is it. And so instead of trying to fight what we're biologically designed to do, we should just adapt and use it to our advantage. And the reason why I say that is men can be hypergamous too. If you know what hypergamy means, it basically means that you want something better than what you are. Like women typically, not all women, typically want a man that's taller than them,
making more
money, and has higher status. And so these are the men that women tend to throw themselves at or become available for, or whatever the case may be. And so we can be hypergamous too if we get on our shit and grind. Like, there is no other answer except for becoming the best version of yourself. That way, when a woman comes up to you and is BSing or showing low interest, it doesn't matter, because you can pick another woman who is being dependable, who is showing interest, and who is not playing text messages.
Yeah.
So
I think it's important to note that, like, so when Rashad says, like, oh, be on your purpose, you know, basically doing you basically have to be yourself. And I think that's such an underrated thing in today's society, because everybody's trying to be whoever they think the other person wants.
Man.
And so when you fall into that trap, which I fall into that trap before, where you like, all right, what in my head, what does this girl want? Let me be that person. Man. When you start to do that, one, you start to lose yourself. And then secondly, when you're not getting the results that you want from being somebody that you're not, you start getting mad at yourself and you start forgetting who you really are.
Man.
So you start confusing a lot of things. It's like, damn, like, am I really just a messed up human being, or am I just trying to not be myself? And so, but the hardest part about being yourself is when somebody doesn't accept you for being yourself. And that's, you just have to be okay with it. I think that's the hardest thing in today's society and social media, is just accepting that other person doesn't want you. Bro, if he would, if he really need to, he would. He texts you, like, nah, none of that shit is real. Like, stop looking at Justin LeBoy posts. Bro, all that shit is fake. You know when a person likes you.
If you have to ask if somebody likes you, then they don't like you.
They don't.
And let me preface this for women too, because I know a lot of women listen to this podcast. So when you're asking for that man on social media to do this and do that, the reason why he doesn't do it is because if he were to do it, you would stop liking him.
For sure.
And you don't realize this, and you're gonna be like, that's not true as you're listening to this. But men have tried it and failed. Okay, so for the girls out there that are listening to this podcast, there is a phenomenon called hypergamy. And what that means is you naturally seek out someone who is superior to you, whether that be in height, weight, financial status, or power. That all goes into status. Right. And because of this phenomena, it's because you wanted, back in the day, I guess, I don't know what all the biology is, but women sought men for protection. And in order to be protected, you need someone who was stronger than you, like, at least that's my interpretation of it. And so this phenomena has existed for millennia, however long we've been alive, or whatever the case may be. And so naturally, in today's market, in today's society, what that looks like is, okay, who provides the most money? That's who can protect and provide for me the most. This is what hypergamy is. That's why you see a lot of, famous people with these young ladies that no one knows about. They're just pretty. They're not famous businesswomen or whatever the case may be. And so I say all this to say, men, if you want to be hypergamous too, that means that you have to get on your grind, become the best version of yourself.
For sure.
Make the most money that you can. And at that point, you can pretty much choose the women that you want, because hypergamy is always going to win. Right. And if you have the abundance and natural resources to take care of a woman, there's going to be a woman that wants to be taken care of. Period.
By you.
Period. By you. You can pretty much call the shots. I guess we could talk about 50-50 relationships, because that's getting more popular in this society. So Xavier, what's your take on the 50-50?
I feel like there's no such thing as 50-50. I think there is points in a relationship where you're going to be giving more. I think it's hard to live in a point scoring culture where it's just like, all right, well, I text you good morning first. Well, I took you out to eat, or well, I gave you this, like, and then you start keeping score, and then once you're at that level of keeping score, it's no longer a relationship. It's a battle at that point, and so you're trying to overcome your own ego to explain why you're giving more. So most men, most high value men, they're not going to be worried about like, oh, well, she didn't pay half her bill or she not helping me with the rent. Real men, real high value men are going to sit down and say, all right, this is what I'm good at. This is what I can cover. What do you think that you can help me in this mission that we're both on? If you can provide me with emotional support, if you can cover the utilities bill, whatever that may look like for you and your relationship, like I think you should do what works. But I think the whole things come back to you have to establish an open communication with your partner. And as long as you're establishing open communication with your partner, then none of this 50-50 shit is going to come up. And you're going to know that, all right, I know I'm giving 100% at all times.
Right. And Xavier, to piggyback off that point and to add another variable, I think communication with your partner is probably the most important thing you can do. But it's really how you communicate. You need to figure out how your partner receives information in the best way and communicate it in that way. Yeah. Like a lot of times women will do... No. Let me start with men. A lot of times men will just not communicate at all. We just won't say anything because we want to see if it's important enough to really get mad at. And a lot of times women will go and address it immediately. Yeah. And a lot of times men will be completely and utterly direct. And a lot of times women will be indirect and hope you just get it based on the other things that she said, which weren't necessarily true, but weren't necessarily false. So you really have to sit down with your partner and just actually pay attention to how they communicate and what they are saying. And then try to tailor your message in a way, it's going to take trial and error, that they can actually receive. And I think that's one of the reasons why me and Xavier have so much chemistry is because we've known each other for so long. We kind of communicate in the same frequency. And so we kind of get what each other is saying without necessarily even saying that.
Right.
And if you can learn how to communicate with your partner and as a man establish a goal for the relationship, whether it be marriage, whether it be, okay, honey, I want to make $200,000 this year in the household and this is how we're going to do it, or I want to visit these 5 places this year. If you can have a goal for the relationship, you'll, in my case, from what I've seen growing up, you'll avoid a lot of petty arguments because instead of, getting bogged down in the day-to-day, there's like a long-term mission that you're always focused on. And so if there's a long-term mission that you and your lady are focused on and you're able to communicate, I think that is the best way to achieve success in a relationship.
Yeah. Very well said. Yeah.
That was a good first podcast. I'm not gonna lie, bro.
Yeah, that's good.
We can't divulge too much information in the first one, but I can tell that there is definitely an experience difference from what we're saying right now until we said back in the past. We're a little bit more fluid. We know exactly what we're talking about. There's no guessing.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, bro.
It always flows.
Man. But I think this outline that you did was perfect. Just something like this to where you just ask like a couple of questions. I'll do it. We'll just switch off weeks whenever we feel like it. Because I can honestly.
Yeah, I usually just do it on Sunday morning, like right before we get on, just think about, all right, what do I want to talk about?
What's going on in life right now? So
yeah,
that's a bet. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and end this broadcast. We can talk in the studio.